Welcome to the ChangeMakers podcast, produced by City Current and powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park, and we are honored to have with us the CEO of Kripke Enterprises and Mid-South Aluminum, Matt Kripke. We're going to talk all about giving back, supporting employees, recycling, and so much more. So let's go ahead and dive in. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, coming off of a great long weekend, and was in New York City over the weekend for a good friend's son's wedding, so that was very special.
Well, we have a lot of ground to cover. When you talk about special and family, there's a lot of ties there, especially with you in the family business. But let's start with a little bit of just your childhood, where you grew up and how you grew up. So we'll dive in there, but talk about where you grew up.
So born and raised here in Toledo, Ohio, which is where our company is headquartered, and grew up in the suburbs and kind of a idyllic childhood. Went to public schools and then ended up at the University of Michigan for my college education, which is only from Toledo, is only about a 45-minute drive. So really very close and very nurturing type of childhood and growing up in this community.
Well, the University of Michigan has some family legacy pieces there. So talk about the legacy of going to the University of Michigan.
So my parents met at Michigan. I have uncles on both sides who went to Michigan, and I ended up going there. My sister ended up going there. And then I have a daughter who got a master's of social work from there. And then my son just graduated from there a couple months ago from the business school, which is where my dad and I also went and got our degrees. So, I don't know what I would equate it to in Memphis, but in this area, there's a huge college football rivalry, and it's Ohio State and Michigan. And you grow up and you're like, some people have very little opinion about it, but the majority of people are either diehard, I love Ohio State and hate Michigan, or vice versa. And I grew up going to the football games from the time I was about 4 years old. You'll see behind me a Michigan helmet is proud display. Actually, you don't see behind me, I have a Tom Brady autographed full-size helmet that a friend of mine gave me probably back when he could buy it for pretty cheap. Today, I think it'd be a little bit more expensive.
When you talk about growing up and traditions, give us an idea around some of the traditions that you look back on with your family growing up.
So, I've been thinking about how we develop this culture here at Kripke Enterprises in Mid-South. And by the way, Mid-South Aluminum is just up the road from you in Jackson, Tennessee, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But we developed a culture, and I realize that a lot of people say, it feels like a family when you work, and of course you're close to those people all the time. But what we have always strive to communicate to our employees is, yes, it may feel like a family, but your own family has to come first. You need to take care of your family. And I believe that all sprung out of the way that my dad brought up his kids, the way that he set up this company to say to people, look, I'm going to take vacations. I expect you to take vacations. I'm going to spend time with my family. I expect you to spend time with your family. And that translates into a culture of, hey, we do care about each other here, but we do care about your family, and we want you to care about your family. That should definitely come ahead of anything you're doing here. And when things are going great, we want to know about it. And when you're struggling, we also want to know about it, and we want to be flexible and give you time off if you need it and help you.
Give us some of the storyline, because your father, Larry, obviously long career, sells the company, then goes and starts what has become Kripke Enterprises. So give us a little bit of that storyline with your father.
So he came out of the University of Michigan in 1965 and went straight into a family business. And he and his brothers and my grandfather, they built up that business. And I believe in 1977, they merged with a local competitor. They then kept growing the company, and in 1983 ultimately sold out to a large regional recycling company. So they were in the recycling business, and what my dad likes to say is they were green before it was cool to be green. And they, recycling metal is very important to the environment. Without recycled metal, you're essentially, you're not going to have roads, you're not going to have buildings, you're not going to have cars. I mean, they can't, there is not enough raw material to make all the things in this country and that the world demands if you do not protect the environment and recycle those things. So they were doing all those things. He stayed with that company for 10 years and managed a trading division for them. And then in 1992, I remember taking a phone call from him saying, I think I'm going to go off on my own again. I'm 49 years old, and if I don't do it now, I'm probably never going to do it again. And he didn't do it with the idea that we would ever work together. It was just more, I think that I'm ready to stop managing a big group of people again. And he went off on his own in 1993, started our company, and then I ended up coming in with him in 1994.
How has your perspective changed on family and legacy? Because what's interesting is when he sold the company, he came to you and said, hey, what do you think? And you're like, why are you asking me? Because, I don't want to get into this business. And then all of a sudden, you graduate, you come back, you have an opportunity to join the family business. And part of it is, health reasons and stepping in to make sure the business thrives. But all of a sudden you fall in love with it. And then you look at it now in terms of where you are in your career. How has that changed in terms of perspective with the family business and kind of the legacy piece of this?
Sure. So when he initially came to me and they said, hey, we're going to sell the business, this is going back in like 1983. And I had said, great. I have no interest in ever going in to the recycling business. And he was disappointed to hear that, but probably also a little bit relieved, since they had already made a decision to sell it, that he wasn't, quote unquote, screwing me by taking away something that I planned to do later in life. And so, in 1994, when I joined because he got sick and he needed someone to kind of come in and pinch hit. And I just fell in love with the instant gratification piece of the business, putting together deals quickly, the trust part of the business. It's a handshake industry. This is not an industry where when you buy a load, people say, send over the contract and I'll have my lawyers look it over and then we'll determine whether we're going to go forward or not. It's based on its word, and relationships are key. And I loved that aspect of it. The family piece of it, it feels like, that's how you transact business within your family. I'm going to run to the grocery. What do you need? And you're not, those types of discussions that you have all the time, they can be messy and complicated in a family, but you trust each other and the relationships are there, at least in a healthy family relationship. I shouldn't take for granted that every family has a healthy relationship, but most do.
Well, I just think you come at it from a very interesting vantage point in terms of the family business, the legacy, working with your father, and obviously, expanding out and treating everyone like family, which is an important piece of the equation. So we've been talking a lot about it, but go ahead and dive into Kripke Enterprises. When you talk about what you do, go ahead and explain it to everyone.
So we have 4 business units. I'll start with the legacy business. My dad and mom started the business in 1993. There were 3 employees. I was the 4th employee. Today, I think by the end of August, because we have a couple new hires coming on, we'll be up over 70 employees. And the legacy business started from a non-ferrous recycling. Back then, they called it scrap metal brokerage company. My dad focused on non-ferrous metals, which are metals that do not stick to a magnet, such as copper and aluminum is the main ones, also some brasses and some other items. We buy and sell material all over the world, mainly in North America. We import a lot of material out of Mexico. We export material in various countries around the world. We're mainly domestic, though. The majority of the consumers that we sell material into are domestic mills, such as Alcoa, Arconic, Kaiser Aluminum, companies like that. We also, in 2017, we acquired Mid-South Aluminum, which I referenced earlier, in Jackson, Tennessee. They were a partner of ours for a number of years, and they were a very similar business, but they would sell aluminum coil, mainly painted aluminum coil, into the building and construction market mainly, but also like cargo trailers, manufacturing of signs. But the big part of that business is we sell into people who manufacture gutters, downspouts. So they need painted coil to a specific color to match the rest of the house being built or construction. So it made sense to acquire that company, because what we were doing is we were selling recycled material into the same places that then take that recycled metal, melt it down, make new coil, and that new coil is what Mid-South purchases in order to paint and then go into some sort of new product. So it gave us an opportunity. Some of those consumers that were consumers on the scrap metal side became customers on the other side. So it gave us a little bit of leverage, a little bit more leverage, in that at times in the cycle, they need to be nice to us because they really need the recycled material. And then there's times in the cycle where they really have to be nice to us because they really need the sales on the coil side. In an ideal world, they're nice to us all the time, but the reality is that there's certain times that one side or the other gets the royal treatment. The third component is we do have a 224,000 square foot warehouse here in Toledo, and we do process a lot of metal here. We mainly aluminum. As an example, we might buy car wheels that are end of life that cannot be put back on a car. They're damaged in some way, and we'll bring them here. We'll get them cleaned up. And by cleaning them, that doesn't mean washing them with a hose. What that means is removing all the things that are not aluminum, which are valve stems and wheel weights and iron inserts. So we have a production crew that would do that. And then we can sell those as an ingot substitute, because those are all one uniform alloy. And then the fourth component is we have a small what is called a retail operation. And most people who are familiar with recycling in their community would be familiar with a retail operation where someone can go, they can bring in their old lawn furniture, their grill, their wheels that end of life. They can bring those things in, make sure they get responsibly recycled, and they can pick up a few bucks in the meantime. Some people do that as fundraisers. I don't believe Tennessee is a deposit state, so they could take in their aluminum cans and collect those in bags and get paid for those as well. So we have those components. Essentially, we're doing good by the environment. Aluminum is a infinitely recyclable material. 99% of what we do is trade in aluminum, whether it's the coil side or the recyclable material side. And we are members of the Aluminum Association. We are members of the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. And then we have a number of other memberships that speak to kind of our culture, family business, and things along those lines.
And we'll definitely dive into that here in a second. Is aluminum, and when you talk about the metal industry and recycling, is it fairly normalized and stable in terms of pricing and trends, or does it fluctuate dramatically with the economy? Where does that fall?
Yeah, it fluctuates. So aluminum is a commodity. It's the aluminum pricing fluctuates minute by minute and really second by second. The main exchange that aluminum is traded on and prices are marked by is called the London Metal Exchange. And so if the price of aluminum, essentially you'd like to think it's as simple as supply demand. And as the supply goes down, the price should go up. And as the demand goes up, the price should go up, and vice versa. It's not always that simple, because we are in this, for the same reason that sometimes you say, why is that stock price going up? That company's losing money. It doesn't make any sense. Well, eventually it's going to catch up and it's going to make sense. It just may not make sense that day. And there may be people who are speculating or they know something that the rest of the market doesn't know, and they're driving the price up where the price is coming down. And so our business is really, really simple in that we're trying to recycle things that can be recycled and turn them into coil that can then be made into something. And on other ways, it's very complicated in that the pricing is dynamic and it changes. The same, I referenced wheels before. There's times that we've been selling finished product wheels for 50 cents a pound, which a full truckload of that would be, 40,000 pounds would be around $20,000. And then there's times where we sell that same product for $1.50 a pound, where a truckload is $60,000. And it just depends on the price of aluminum and at the time and how in demand that product is. Gotcha.
Huh. So, and obviously on the business side, it's like that can be, extremely stressful because it's like on massive fluctuations. So
right.
Always interesting when you talk about diving into the actual business. So let's switch gears, because when you talk about treating employees as family, the culture of giving back, making a difference, supporting the community, your motto on the business side, make the world a better place. And I love that focus on committing to the community, committing to your employees, your customers, but talk about kind of that general culture, and then we'll dive into some of the specifics, but talk about the culture around caring for others, caring for the community. You mentioned even caring for the environment, obviously. So talk about caring in terms of the culture for Kripke Enterprises.
In order for employees to buy in that what they're doing is worthwhile and important, it has to be more than, hey, we're working at this company and we have an opportunity to make money. And, of course, everyone wants to get paid well, and they want to receive bonuses, and they want to build for retirement. People want that, but that's not a differentiator. That might get someone in the door fresh out of college, but by the time they get to their second or third job, they're looking for something that connects to them about, whether it's making the world better, making the world greener and more sustainable, whether it is working at an environment, and here's where I think is a differentiator for us, is working at an environment where people are valued and they know that they are cared for. And it sounds so simple to say, yeah, of course you have to care for your employees, but there's a lot of places that don't, or treat them as a number, or treat them as, hey, if you don't show up, I don't really care what's going on in your home life. If you don't show up, you don't have a job. And, our philosophy here has been, like I said, we want to know what's going on with you. We want you to communicate with us. I miss the fact, now that we have as many employees as we have, when we had less than 20 employees, once a month and sometimes multiple times a month, I would sit down with each employee for just a half-hour sit down. And I would say, all right, bring me up to speed. What's going on here? And now, if there, sometimes that would keep us busy for a full half hour. But oftentimes within 2-3 minutes, we'd be caught up. And I would say, okay, now what's going on with your daughter? What's going on with your husband? What's going on with your mom and dad? Bring me up to speed. And people knew that we cared, and not only by asking, but by then, they would say, well, my mom is really struggling health-wise, and I think we're going to have to move her back to Toledo. And then a day, 2 days later, I might pull that person aside and say, hey, I've been thinking about our conversation, and I know you know this, but I just want to verbalize it so that there's no ambiguity, that if you need some time off to go move her from here to Toledo and you're out of personal time, don't let that stop you from coming to us, and we can figure something out. We'll figure out if we can borrow from next year, or if we can, find a way that we can be supportive of what you're going through. And those little tiny moments build trust. They build that relationship, and and that's the environment that people want to work in. They don't want to work in an environment where, hey, you're out of personal time, tough, blank, and we can't help you.
You and I originally met as a part of the University of Toledo Family Business Center Doing Right Spotlight. You were the award winner for the Doing Right by Employees, Doing Right for Employees. And so one of the things that we touched on, we got to interview you and really shine a light on a home buyer opportunity that you created for your team. And so for first-time home buyers, really putting together a whole financial literacy program, and then supplemental, opportunities to be able to enable them to purchase their own home. And that came about from you noticing a challenge that, your employees were facing. So dive into that storyline and what led you to create this program.
What led us to create the program is we have some employees here that are, more highly compensated than others. And, but everyone is valued as part of the team. We're very generous with bonuses. Hourly employees are still eligible for 401k and all those types of things. And one of the other things that I've always prided myself on, and our president of our company, Chad Kripke, he does a great job of it as well, is we walk out into the processing area in the warehouse, and we make sure that we stop and we talk to the employees out there as well. And it's not, a lot of times CEOs, presidents have this reputation of they sit in an ivory tower, so to speak, and we want to make sure that we interact with all the employees. And I was talking to an employee on a beautiful summer day like it is out today, and I said, did you have a nice weekend? Yeah, it was great. Were you outside with your daughter? No, I can't go outside with my daughter. There's too many drive-by shootings in my area. Probably much like Memphis, there's areas in Toledo that probably are not the safest. And it made me feel terrible. And I came back to my executive team and said, what can we do about this? I told them the story, and we put our heads together and we said, what if we embarked on a new homeowners program to get people out of renting in those neighborhoods that they feel like they have to rent in because that's all they could afford, and we get them into buying homes in maybe a little bit closer to where we've moved our offices to, and get them out of those areas. And so one of the guys said, that is a great idea, but a lot of these people have no idea what a mortgage is. They have no idea what home ownership entails, all the additional expenses. They've never owned a home. And so we figured we needed to set up a financial literacy program. We partnered with a local credit union, and they come in and they do a lunch and learn once a month, and we run a 6-month program. And so once a month they get some information, they get homework, they also get lunch, and they can go through that financial literacy program whether they're going to take part and buy a new home or not. And then after they've gone through that, as long as they've been employed for a year, then we'll match up to $2,500 of their down payment. The credit union will help them through the Federal Home Loan Bank program to get a first-time homebuyers grant if they're eligible for that. And then we'll pay $100 a month towards their mortgage for 3 years. And that kind of helps get them into the cadence of owning a home and all the monthly expenses, and we're helping them out in the beginning. And we now have 5 people that we pay the monthly amount towards their mortgage. And it's exciting for us. I mean, it's really inspiring. But what has been truly inspiring about it is we've been able to celebrate it as a team. And so there's 5 people we're paying for, but yet there's all these other employees that have come forward and said, can I give money towards this? And they want to help. They want to help their employees. And so we did not want them to kind of overfund it. So we capped it, and we said, hey, any employee who wants to put any money into the pot, you can take up to $200 of your paycheck or your year-end bonus, and you can put it in this pot. And that way, you're helping all these other people get in their first home and helping pay for them to be in their first home. And it's been really, really great the way other employees rally around helping new employees and celebrate these new employees who get in a new home.
It was really inspiring. We had a chance to interview 2 of them, and for them to talk about what it means to them to be able to have their own home, have their own place, the stability, the independence, all that comes along with it. But, both of them were just completely blown away with appreciation and, gratitude and the thoughtfulness and the kindness to be able to allow them to do this. And I think it was really inspiring to hear from them how much it meant to them. What did that mean to you to be able to see the impact that it was having on the individuals?
Like I said earlier, where people have to feel like they're part of something bigger and that they're cared for. A lot of people think about, what is my purpose? What am I put on this earth for? And, of course, everyone looks to their own beliefs, whether they're religious or not. They look to their own beliefs as to what they believe in. And if you boil down most religions would say, you're here to make the world better. Leave it a better place than what you found it. I look at that I've been blessed, and I'm very lucky that I am good at creating opportunities for others. I am good at encouraging other people to grow and to try new things. And So I feel very blessed when I hear a story like what you're saying, that they're grateful, that they're happy, that they're thrilled, because all I really want to do, not just for my employees, but for our community and for people in general, I want to make the world better. And I feel like in that case, when you say, how does that make me feel? It makes me feel really freaking good to know that I have impacted people's lives in a positive way. And, I know I've made a difference in my wife's life, in my parents' life, in my kids' life. But to go beyond that, it makes you feel really good and fulfilled. And, everyone struggles. Everyone has tough days. Everyone has days where mentally, you're doubting yourself. But the more that you can pull on those types of moments where, hey, I've made a difference here, it makes it easier to, you don't listen to the doubt as much. Not to say that you never have it, because I will tell you, my wife and I have an expression, and that is, everyone has their stuff and everyone's got it. But you need those moments, of those victory moments, to feel good, to fill you up, to get you through those times where things are tough.
How do you stay sharp? You're a big part of the University of Toledo Family Business Center, as we mentioned before, the Ross Business School with the University of Michigan. So you're very plugged into enrichment opportunities, collaboration, mentorship, and guidance. How do you stay sharp?
I love to read and I love to learn new things. I like to challenge myself by, I love when people make a suggestion to me on a book, especially when it's a book that's way outside of anything I would find on my own. I listen to probably one entertainment podcast followed by one kind of learning. I'll go from listening to Smartless so that I can laugh, to then going to listen to the next big idea or some TED Talks so that I can challenge myself and learn new things. But I find that, you need to join, you need to volunteer. And I loved your book about, now I'm going to screw up the title.
Giving for Growth.
Right?
That's right.
All right. So I loved the book, because when you get involved in, I'm currently serving on the advisory board for the University of Toledo Center for Family Business. We're a member of the University of Michigan Center for Positive Organizations, which is about building a positive culture. I've chaired our local chapter of Young Presidents Organization, which means that you help set up the programming of people that you bring in to speak to other leaders in your area. And I've served on a number of other boards, and currently I'm chairing the Toledo Jewish Community Foundation, which is kind of the long-term fundraising arm of our local Jewish community. And what I've found is that when you get involved in other things, you end up benefiting, ironically, you end up benefiting yourself. And, I say to people all the time, in this case, it's okay to be selfish, because I loved how in your book you used examples of, hey, you move into a town where you don't really know people, go out and get involved. And what a great way to meet people. And I have my son, who we referenced, who just graduated. He's moving down to Dallas, Texas later this month, and doesn't know anyone. But I have no doubt that kid is going to be fine and going to get involved, because he follows this model. He's done it when he's in school. He got involved in clubs, and he got involved in, beyond fraternity life, but he got involved in volunteering, and he'll follow that model.
And I think, when you talk about volunteerism specifically, it's people who care. And so when you start getting around people who care and are opening their hearts for all the right reasons to be able to make a difference, that's where I just think there's no greater place to meet just amazing people, because you're around this shared enthusiasm for making the community better. And you're just meeting amazing people who genuinely care, and they care about others. They care about the community. They're going to care about you as well. And so when you start kind of getting into that world, yes, you're giving back, you're making your community better. At the same time, though, you are meeting amazing, caring people. And I just feel like that's that gravitational field, that magnet, that draws people in. And it's through volunteerism, it's through caring and opening up your heart. So I love that aspect. And to your point, you, in the process, you learn a lot about yourself. You are gaining leadership skills and fine-tuning, all of these skill sets that are going to be instrumental in your career. And that's professional, personal, and even spiritual, like we're talking about. So share a little bit when you talk about your evolution as CEO. What's maybe one or two ways that you've grown and changed over the years?
Well, like many people, when I was younger, and I'm 55 now. So, I look back now and I say, boy, I thought my parents were really old when they were 55. And I look at myself and my wife, who's 54. And by the way, she looks like she's about 34. But I look at us and I say, wait a minute, my parents, they couldn't have been that old when they were 55, because look at us. We look amazing. At least my wife does. And but some of the changes are, I would never have described myself as hot-headed, but I would have described myself as I had an ability to lose my temper too quickly, where I might say something I was going to regret. And now, I would say very rarely do I ever let my emotions get the best of me. There's just too much life experience. And I think that's part of the evolution of becoming a good leader, whether you're a leader by title or not. Being a CEO, that's only a title. Being a leader is essentially, hey, realizing, like I said earlier, everyone's got their stuff. Someone may say something where you're like, wait a minute, did they just really say something? Or wait a minute, are they really trying to not treat me fairly on purpose? Because they think it's in their best interest. And, sometimes people just, they're having a bad day, and you have to give them a minute. And whether it's an employee, a customer, or just, a barista who could be having a bad day, it's very easy to only see things through your perspective. And I think the evolution of being a good leader is learning how to see things through other people's eyes and empathize and not just walk a mile in their shoes, but just, be willing to just put on their shoes for a second, so that you're not getting yourself all worked up over something that you're going to look back on in probably an hour and say, why was I worked up about that?
I think that's definitely part of maturity. When you look at not getting tripped up over what really is a small thing. Also, too, realizing that most things, just about everything, it's not black or white. There's a lot of complexity in between, and sitting back and kind of unpacking that and getting a full assessment of every situation that you're dealing with. And then also, too, when you look at just, as you mentioned, you've got to be able to charge your battery to then recharge others. But in many cases, the CEO, you think chief executive officer, but it's really in many cases chief encouragement officer, and being able to encourage others and make sure that they're on the right path and mentally on the right path as well. And so carry that into a quote or something that pops out to you when you talk about kind of a quote that you have top of mind that inspires you, that encourages you, what's one of those quotes that you go to?
Well, I'll tell you my favorite quote in a second, but essentially being a good leader, being a good CEO is, I love that chief encouragement officer, but it was a number of years ago where I just made this realization that my employees don't work for me, I work for them. And that is that's really, in order to be an effective leader, it is, there have been rough years. There's been some great years, and they love, how generous we are with bonuses in those years. And there's been some years where I just stopped taking a paycheck, where I just said, hey, it's much more important that they get there. And, back then, the first couple times I did it, my wife would say, I wonder if these people know what you're doing for them. And I said, they know in their heart. They may not, I may not have shared that back then, but they know. And the quote, speaking of that, the quote, my favorite quote, and in terms of how to be an effective leader and build the right culture, is from Zig Ziglar, and it's people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And we have a culture here that people know that we care about them, and we help them buy a first home. We listen to them when they're going through stuff. This year's our 30-year anniversary, and one of the things that we did for our 30-year anniversary is we said, all right, we're having this big dinner to celebrate. We're having this big party at the end of the year to celebrate. We're doing all these fun things. But one of the other things we did is we said, all right, we're setting aside $30,000, and we're putting in this, named after my dad, this Larry Kripke Cares Fund. And this fund is here. If any of you, you get in trouble, your car breaks down on the way to work, and you need to borrow some money short term, or you need, you have a medical bill, your daughter is in the hospital, and you need some help with that medical bill, and it's not a loan, it's just, we'll help pay it. You hear about a story with a customer, let us know. And I think so far we have, it's about halfway through the year, and I think we've given away about half the money of people just quietly coming to our HR person or coming directly to me and saying, hey, I need some help. I feel bad asking for it. And we would say, we don't want you to feel bad asking for it. We don't want to publicize this. We just want to quietly help you. And that's part of what our anniversary is about.
I love it. Well, let's switch over and do a lightning round as we wrap up. So basically short questions, short answers, just to have some fun and get to know you better.
Wait, I gotta warn you, you've already heard me talk for this long. Short answers I inherited from my dad. That's not my specialty, but I'll do my best. Go ahead.
That's right. Everyone, when we say that, and the ultimate reality is it's never really short answers. So you're fine. Give us a favorite restaurant somewhere when we go to Toledo, Ohio, or that area. Where's a favorite go-to spot for you and your family?
All right, I'm gonna give you two answers. Toledo, Ohio, Kango, which is a sushi restaurant. There's no way that some of the best sushi in the world should be in Toledo, Ohio, which is not on an ocean. But it is. If you come to Toledo, trust me, go to Kango. And then outside of Toledo, my family had, and this is more of a tradition relationship with this tradition, is we love In-N-Out Burger, double animal style. Whenever we're anywhere that has, and I think that might be why my son chose Dallas. So
nice. And I would be safe to say that probably a lot of families have that same, go-to
right.
tradition with In-N-Out. What is a favorite place or thing you like to do when you have out-of-town visitors come in the Toledo, Ohio area? What's something you like to do with them?
So I used to be a golfer. I'm now a retired, frustrated golfer. I don't really play anymore. So that would have been the go-to answer probably 10 years ago. Today, we've gotten very involved here in the metro parks. We just built a one-of-a-kind, beautiful metro park, meaning the community did, right on the river in downtown on the east side, and it is unbelievable. And I would say right now, that would be where I would take someone.
What do you like to do to relax?
I love floating in a pool in the summer, and I love walking. That's where I do my best thinking.
What's a fun date night or activity you like to do with your wife?
I'm very lucky. I love anytime I have an opportunity to just spend time with her. We've been married for 28 years. Got it right without even looking up to think about it. So I should get credit for that. But I'm very lucky in that I love when we can get out of town and spend a long weekend together. No matter, we're going up to Detroit in a few weeks, which is an hour away, and just going to go up there for a couple nights just to get away. In terms of a date night in Toledo, probably just going out for dinner, or every once in a while there's a show in town or something along those lines. But we love getting together with friends.
Where's a favorite vacation spot for your family?
Well, my in-laws live in Scottsdale, and my parents live in Palm Beach Gardens in Florida. So those would be the most common locations. I would say my wife and I are in love with a place on the other side of the state from you called Blackberry Farm. And we're going there again in September of this year. This will be our fifth trip there. This one's going to be a very special trip. We're going with my siblings to celebrate my sister's breast cancer being in remission. So we're very excited about that trip and getting to spend time with our siblings.
Absolutely. And that's an amazing spot for sure. What's a recent book you've read?
Well, I told you I read yours. I'm reading one right now called We Want to Do More Than Survive, which is by Bettina Love. And it's essentially opening up. And this is an example of what I was talking about earlier, someone suggesting a book to me that I wouldn't find on my own. And it's just, I get to see, I'll never fully understand what it would be like to grow up Black, and what it would be like to be a person of color, because I'm not. And it allows me to see that through the lens of how has education been taught, and what are some of the experiences. And so I'm finding it's fascinating. I'm about a little bit more than halfway through that book right now.
Give us a challenge or something you thought was really difficult, but when you look back and you were able to overcome it. It could be sports, it could be golf, whatever it was, but a challenge that you overcame, something that you accomplished that you're, really proud of, that really, kind of stands out to you as just something that, maybe the public doesn't know about, but just is a moment that you're happy about.
I'm really proud of, I'm proud of all of my kids, but I'm proud of my my youngest son, who has had some significant mental health challenges. He just graduated high school. There was probably a time in our lives where I would have said, I'm not sure we're ever going to get him to there. And he's accepted to a college in California. There was a time where I would have said he's never going to be able to go to college, and certainly not that far away. So in terms of bringing it back to me, I'm proud of the way that my wife and I have been able to support him and, get him the help that he needed, but also just be a supportive mom and dad to let him know that we love him and care about him, and, and that we understand that some of his struggles have been difficult to overcome, but he's done it. And I think that the way that we've been able to be the parents that we have through a lot of mistakes along the way and not doing everything perfectly, but giving ourselves the gift of forgiveness and the gift of grace that, hey, we're learning too how to help you best. And I'm really, I would say, of all the things in my life, I'm probably most proud of that.
Obviously, your parents, your wife, when you look at those who inspire you, give us someone, that pops into your head immediately in terms of who inspires you.
And you're saying you want someone other than those obvious choices.
You can pick the obvious choice. I'm giving you grace on this. You can go wherever you want.
Certainly, both my mom and dad have been really great role models of how to be great parents. I think that one of the people that I'm most inspired by is my wife. I think that she has taught me so much about just being, kind and caring about people. And she has this unique skill that when you become one of her people, she will go out of her way for you, and people go out of their way for her because they know the way that she cares. And she's really a very, very special, unique person. She's shy and she's introverted, and so she and I are a good match because I am not. And we watching her get out of her comfort zone and do some public speaking and things that she's totally uncomfortable with, it's inspiring for me because I know how hard that is for her.
What's a recent TV show or movie you've watched?
Well, of course, I have to plug The Boys, which is on Amazon. That is, my brother Eric is in the TV business, and I do truly love it. I've been on the set a number of times. They shoot the show up in Toronto. Anyone watching this, if you do not have a really strong stomach and you do not like gross, sick humor, don't start, because it is rated R, hard R. But I'm a comedy fan. My favorite show of all time is probably Arrested Development. My currently It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia just makes me giggle like a child because it's so silly and so funny. There's a number of others. I do love the medium.
Last two questions. So on this one, obviously you've got a long way still to go when you talk about creating your legacy, but many, many, many years from now, what do you hope that people say about you and your legacy for not only your company, but for you and your family?
He created opportunities for other people to make their life better.
And then the last question is the easy one. Where do we go to follow you and your efforts online? So when you talk about Kripke Enterprises and just getting to know you better in the future, where do we go? So website, social media, where do we go?
For my mental health, I took myself off of Twitter about a year and a half ago. I just felt it was like a cesspool of negativity. No offense, Mr. Musk, but it's not my thing. I am on LinkedIn. I do post probably semi-regularly on LinkedIn, but I'm not a big social media person. Kripke Enterprises has a pretty strong presence on, I believe, as far as I know, maybe we have a Facebook page, but I'm not on it. I've never been on it. But I know that we do have a social media presence on Instagram. And so if you go look at Kripke Enterprises, whether it's LinkedIn or all those places, I think you can find us.
And the website is kripke.com. That makes it very easy. So KRIPKE.com. And so everything is linked there. So Matt Kripke, Kripke Enterprises, Mid-South Aluminum. You are a change maker. I love everything you're doing to make a difference, not only internally with your company and your employees, but obviously externally in the communities. And so thank you for all you do. Thank you for being a change maker. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. I love your message, and your book resonated with me. If any of your viewers or listeners have not read it yet, I highly recommend it.